A woman opens a drawer, decades after it began. Hidden beneath folded clothes, there is a small object. A hospital bracelet. A faded photograph. Or perhaps, a single pair of baby socks, never worn. No one else was meant to find it. But it became the only quiet proof that a child was real, that a birth had happened, and that somewhere in the world, a part of her life was still missing. This is the story of how those socks ended up in that drawer. It is the story of more than 1.5 million young women who passed through a system designed to make a child vanish. They called it the baby scoop era. There was no printed handbook. No law that forced them to obey. But families, churches, schools, doctors, and neighbors followed the same invisible rulebook. If an unmarried girl became pregnant, shame had to disappear. And so did the child. If you trace the objects left behind, each one reveals a rule that was never spoken aloud, but obeyed without question. The first object was a bus ticket. A teenage girl stands alone at a bus station in Columbus, Ohio, in 1953. She cannot be more than 17. Her father presses a bus ticket into her hand, then turns and walks away. He does not hug her. He does not touch her shoulder. He does not look back. She climbs onto the bus with one small suitcase. Inside are a few clothes, a brush, and a Bible. There is nothing packed for the baby she is carrying. By the time she comes home, she will be expected to act as if that baby never existed. After the Second World War, America celebrated one picture above all others. A married mother, a working father, smiling children, and a neat home behind a white fence. That image became more than a dream. It became a measure of respect. If you fit the picture, you belonged. If you did not, people believed something was wrong with you. For a young woman who became pregnant before marriage, that pressure could feel impossible to escape. Special maternity homes stood on quiet streets across the country. Florence Crittenton homes, Salvation Army Booth homes, and homes run by Catholic charities welcomed thousands of young women every year. From the outside, they looked calm and caring. Inside, many girls waited for the day they would give birth, and then say goodbye. But the bus ticket was only the beginning. The next object was something she was already wearing, before she ever left home. The loose dress. Before she disappeared, she had to hide. Her clothes became the first wall. Loose dresses, large coats, and heavy sweaters kept the growing baby hidden for as long as possible. Every extra week meant fewer questions, fewer whispers, and more time before the world found out. Then a story was prepared for anyone who asked. Maybe she was staying with an aunt in another state. Maybe she was helping a sick relative. Maybe she had found a new job. The reason changed from family to family, but the goal never did. No one was supposed to know the truth. Then one day, she was simply gone. Her desk at school sat empty. Her place in the church pew was left unused. A chair at work stayed vacant. Friends noticed, but many did not ask. Others guessed the truth, yet said nothing. The silence became part of the plan. She disappeared from everyday life, long before she entered the maternity home. And once those doors closed behind her, the outside world was expected to forget she had ever been pregnant at all. Inside those doors, the next object was not something she brought with her. It was a name written in a register that did not belong to her. The false name. When she arrived at the maternity home, another part of her old life quietly disappeared. At the front desk, some young women were told to use a different name. It was meant to protect the family and keep neighbors from finding out where they were. From that moment on, even their own identity could feel distant. The days followed a strict routine. As her stomach grew through the 8th, and then the 9th month, she was expected to keep working. Floors scrubbed. Beds made. Laundry washed and folded. There was always another chore waiting. The work was not only about keeping the home clean. Many staff members believed hard work would build good character. To the young women living there, it felt like punishment for becoming pregnant. They were not treated like girls waiting to become mothers. They were expected to earn forgiveness, one task at a time. Each day sent the same quiet message: you had made a mistake, and now you had to repay it. By the time labor finally began, many had spent months carrying not only the weight of a growing baby, but also the heavy belief that they had to deserve kindness before they could receive it. If you are following this story, and you believe these voices deserve to be heard, take a moment to subscribe. It helps us bring more forgotten histories to light. Because the next object is the hardest one to hold. It is a piece of cloth, placed between a mother and her newborn child. The drape. Then the waiting ended. She was taken into the delivery room, often with no family beside her. No mother to hold her hand, no father, no close friend. Only nurses, doctors, and the quiet sound of medical tools. The pain came in waves, stronger, closer, harder to bear. Then, at the moment of birth, another barrier appeared. In many maternity homes and hospitals, a drape or sheet was placed between the young mother and the baby. Sometimes the words were spoken out loud. Do not look. Other times, nothing had to be said. The cloth itself gave the order. Do not see the face. Do not count the tiny fingers. Do not make the first memory. Many believed this would make the goodbye easier. If she never looked, they thought she would not become too attached. But that was exactly what the system needed. To complete the adoption, it helped if the mother believed she should step away before love had a chance to grow. For some women, the baby's first cry was the only proof that a son or daughter had entered the world. Then the room grew quiet again. Years later, many could still remember that cry, even if they were never allowed to see the face that made it. The papers. The baby was gone, but the process was not over. Before many young mothers had even regained their strength, papers were placed in front of them. Some were still weak from childbirth. Some could barely sit up. Yet they were expected to make one of the biggest decisions of their lives. The words sounded gentle. They were told this was the loving choice, the unselfish choice, the chance to give the baby a better future. Again and again, they heard that a good mother would let go. Few had someone whose only job was to protect their interests. There was no lawyer sitting beside them. No independent advisor explaining every choice. No trusted voice asking, "Are you sure this is what you want?" Instead, many faced the papers alone. Some were warned that they could never give the child the life he or she deserved. Others were told the baby would suffer if they tried to keep him. A few believed they had no real choice at all, even when the law was more complicated than they had been led to believe. With tears still fresh, and questions still unanswered, many signed their names. The ink dried in seconds. The loss that followed, for many mothers, lasted the rest of their lives. The baby socks. Then, she returned home. The same front door opened. The same curtains hung in the windows. Her bedroom looked just as she had left it. At first glance, it seemed as though nothing had changed. But everything had. At the first family meal, the silence began. No one asked about the birth. No one spoke the baby's name, if a name had even been given. The weeks away were treated like a chapter that had never happened. She was expected to smile, go back to school or work, attend church, and carry on as before. The invisible rule was clear: do not talk about it. For many young women, the hardest part was not only losing a child. It was pretending there had never been one. Still, some refused to let every memory disappear. At the bottom of a drawer, hidden beneath folded clothes, there might be one small object. A hospital bracelet, a tiny photograph, a card from the maternity home, or a single pair of baby socks, never worn. No one else was meant to find it. It became the only quiet proof that the child was real, that the birth had happened, and that somewhere in the world, a part of her life was still missing. And decades later, when sealed records began to open, some of those hidden objects would finally be matched with a face that had been searching for them all along. If stories like this help you see history in a new way, please subscribe, like and drop a comment. There are many more forgotten chapters still waiting to be uncovered, and many voices that deserve to be heard at last.